Hello, happy new year, everybody. Welcome to a beautiful year. I hope we had an exciting celebration. So, I'm so grateful to God for successfully crossing over. How's everybody doing? So, in this live session today, I would be working us through a process how we can set our funding goals and strategy for the new year. So most times at the beginning of the year like this, the thoughts that come through our minds as social impact leaders is where am I going to get money from this year? How are we going to raise funding for the work we want to do? How are we going to get grants? And all those questions around money. Okay, so there are specific principles that we need to follow, specific strategies that we need to follow in order for us to be able to find answers to those questions and really pull in the funding that we need to keep our work going in the new year. You can do this on a quarterly basis, or every 2 quarters, maybe every 6 months, or maybe at the beginning of the year like this, whatever works for your organization. So if you're watching with me live, leave a comment. Hello Harry, good to have you joining. So for us here in this community, for some of us that are just meeting for the very first time, especially those that joined the group in the last 2 or 3 weeks, my name is Rukewe Uvieche series. So I know it can be a mouthful, so you can just call me Ruki. And I'm the Director of Strategy and Programs Design at Strategic Outcomes Consulting, which is an organization that I founded to work with non-profit leaders, social impact leaders, so they can get grant ready and funded to advance the innovative programs and solutions that they are delivering to solve problems in the different communities where they're working. So this year, that's what we'll continue doing to ensure that all of our offerings, the programs, the coaching programs, and the workshops are clearly focused on one specific outcome. And that outcome is for you to get grant ready and funded and advance the work that you do in the various communities and in various organizations where you work. So straight to the topic for this session. I like coming on live on Monday morning so that by the time you get the information from the session, you get the insights and the ideas, you're starting the week right and you have a most productive week. It doesn't affect our Friday programs in any way, because on Fridays it's the Get Funded live show that will be streaming here, where we'll talk everything about funding and about grant readiness. So today, this is like the first work day of the new year 2022, and I want us to focus on the foundation, focus on the most critical elements of making this year very successful and highly productive for your organization. And it's the question of funding. How do we raise funding for the work we do? So I would be walking you through in this short video how to set your funding goals and the strategies to pull in those monies for your organization. Now, I want us to reflect, how much do you really want to attract in this year 2022? So most of us must have set our agendas to $300,000 or $100,000 for our organizations, but you will be going about it the wrong way if you are doing that. Now, the first question you need to ask yourself is, what do we want to achieve this year? The question of funding comes in when you have clarity about the outcomes you want or the value that you want to create in the new year. So you can't be saying we need $300,000. What for? What would that amount of money go in for? What value would that amount of money create for the communities that you support? So before we talk about the question of funding, grants, and all of that, the first thing to do is to be very clear about the value you want to create, and then ask yourself, how much do we need to create this specific value for our organization? So, for instance, you started this year, you work with women. You can set an intention to say, we want to pull 300 women out of poverty, 300 women that have been affected by domestic violence, or 300 women in IDP camps, or 1,000 women in IDP camps. Thank you, Harry, for putting out the bullet points in there. So you want to pull out 300 women from poverty in IDP camps. That's clear. That's a clear value that you want to create. So what exactly would need to happen in order for you to pull these women out of poverty? So let's say, for instance, the outcome you want to create through that project or through that initiative is to build the income generating capacities of vulnerable women in IDP camps. That's a very clear outcome that you want to focus on the year. So when you have this level of clarity, build income generating capacity for 300 or 1,000 women in IDP camps in so communities. Maybe you have specific communities or LGAs or states that you would want to work in. 400, 500 or 1,000 vulnerable women. Then what are the specific activities that you need to carry out in order to achieve this outcome? What do we need to do specifically in order to pull 1,000 women out of poverty through building their income generating capacities? So maybe you outline activities like we have to train them on specific crafts, build enterprise development skills, marketing, how they can brand even at a very small scale or a very low at the rural scale. How can they brand these small crafts that we have taught them to do, and then teach them marketing skills? So you outline specific activities that need to contribute to this outcome. That's the first step. Clarity on the value that you need to create. Clarity on the value that you must create in this new year before you talk about funding. So when you are clear about the outcomes and the activities that you need to do to create that outcome, to make that value happen, then you create your budget. So in order for us to do these trainings, to give these women seed capital, in order for us to be able to support these women to build marketing capacities and all of that, how much would it cost? Then you create your budget. So at the end of the day, supporting 1,000 women, you might find out that you need about $300,000 or $400,000 in order to make that project happen. Now you have a clear funding goal for the work that you are doing. So it's no longer ambiguous or vague to say we need to raise $500,000 and you are not clear when donors ask you, okay, you need $400,000. What specifically do you want to do? And then you don't have clarity on what you want to do. So get your outcomes clear. Get the activities very clear that you need to do in order for you to make those outcomes happen. Then create your budget. Now you're clear, we need $400,000 or $300,000 this year. Then the third step, in order for you to craft your funding goals and strategies, is to ask how much of this budget would we need to be able to raise from grants? How much do we need in grants? How much do we need in corporate partnerships? How much do we need in service offerings? Now, for a lot of time, those of you that have watched all the videos that I've been streaming in the last 1 or 2 months, I've been talking a lot about business sense. So you need to begin to infuse and integrate a business sense in the work that you do. It's no longer business as usual where, oh, help us, appeals and all of that. You must come to the table with a strong value that you're creating. You must position yourself as a value creator, not just we are helping people in the society. So you're clear, in order to support 500 or 1,000 women in IDP camps to build income generating capacities and come out of poverty, you need $300,000. So you can give yourself a benchmark that we need to raise $200,000 in grants. We need $100,000 in corporate sponsorships or corporate partnerships. Then we would be able to generate $100,000 internally from social media fundraising and also service offerings. So if you are that organization operating at that large scale, that you can support 1,000 women and then you need $350,000, you should also be able to generate income internally through service offerings. So now the advocacy and what we're recommending to social impact and social sector leaders is come out of that traditional NGO model and begin to operate as a social enterprise. Begin to see yourself as a business. I've always said it. See yourself as a business, begin to operate as a business. But in this case, it's not that profits, you're making profits in cash to share. You are creating value, you are creating social profits, but at the same time, you are able to generate income internally through service offerings like what I'm doing now. From my coaching and consulting activities, I'm able to generate income, I'm able to generate revenue. So as a non-profit organization, you're supporting women, children, look at what part of our model, what part of our program can we monetize. Maybe you want to do trainings for smaller NGOs that are upcoming on the specific program theme that you're creating. Maybe you have a unique model of making that happen. You can begin to monetize that and train other NGOs and charge a token for it. All right, so you have $200,000 in grants, $100,000 in corporate partnerships, and $100,000 in service offerings. So it's clear. Then you ask yourself, what funders do we need to talk with? What funders do we need to engage for us to be able to raise this $200,000? That means if you have crafted an outcome that talks about pulling women out of poverty, vulnerable women out of poverty, by building income generating capacities and supporting small enterprise development in vulnerable communities, you need to research donors, grant makers that are supporting that kind of work in that specific location where you are. So it's not a time to start sending random proposals to organizations around, sending letters to UNDP, UNICEF. They will not respond. You have to be strategic. And that's why I'm sharing this with you this morning, so that you can do your planning, because most organizations will go into a planning mode this first week. Some of you want to create strategic plans. You want to create your work plans for the year. For those of you, if you know you are not thinking in that line for planning and strategy development, please watch this video to the end and ensure you implement all that I'm sharing for you in this video for free. All right. So the first thing I spoke about is clearly defining the outcomes you want to achieve this year. What is it you want to do? Do you want to take 500 children out of the streets and keep them in school every term? So using the analogy that we started with, working with 1,000 vulnerable women in IDP camps through building their economic capacities or building income generating capacity, and also ensuring that they have enterprise development skills, that's an outcome. You've defined your activities for the year. You've created your budget. You know you need $350,000 or $450,000. The next question is, who are the grant makers and the funders supporting these kind of outcomes that we want to create? And then you study their grant circles and know, okay, in April, this donor is receiving proposals. So we need to start working on the proposal. What are the criteria? Do we meet the criteria? So these are questions that you need to begin to answer right now in order for you to have a year where you meet financial sustainability. So I said this video is going to be short. I think Nefertiti is trying to get on the live video with me. So if you have questions, think about 11 people are live with me in this session this morning. So if you have questions, please put the question in the comment area. If you want to join the live call, send me a request and I'll add you to the call. So a recap, the first thing, we're talking about everything about money. If you're in this group, it's a money conversation. How do we get money? How do we get funding for the work we do? The first thing is to be clear about the value you must create. What do you need the money for? You don't just need the funding because you are an NGO. You need the funding because you have identified a problem in the community and you want to create a solution. You want to create a program to meet that particular problem. So define the outcome. That's step one. Step two, craft the specific activities that you need in order for you to achieve that outcome. So what you have at the end of the day is a clear project plan. Clear project that is well structured with timelines from January to December. This is the project we're doing. These are the activities. We're doing trainings from so time, from so time. We're doing mentorship, incubation, everything. You put out the project plan clearly, craft the budget. How much would it take? Now, I know a lot of us have been conditioned to plan when there is money in the bank. So as a non-profit, you don't plan because there's money in the bank. You plan so that you'll be able to attract money into the bank. Before any funder will give you money, you must show the value you want to create. So whether you have money in the organization's account or not, clearly get your team together and outline what you want to achieve this year, get the budget, and then these specific outcomes and activities we want to do. which donors are out there, what are the donors, who are the donors supporting this kind of work. Corporate organization, what are the corporate organizations that are serving this specific demographic that we want to work with, so that we can initiate partnership conversations from now for the year. All right, so thank you very much, Harry, for putting up all these bullet points here. It will be very helpful for everyone watching the replay. So think like a business. That's what I've always said. As a non-profit organization, you're not just here because you want to help people. You are here because you want to create value. You're here because you want to drive innovative solutions. We're the third sector operators. We have the private sector, we have the government sector, public sector, and then we have the third sector. When it comes to NGOs are highly innovative organizations. So we need to begin to live, with that expectation. We need to demonstrate what is expected of us, and that is innovation. So it's no longer you're seeing an organization doing training, let's go and do training. No, that's not what it is. It's all about clearly defining the specific outcomes you want to create and then mapping out your strategy. I hope you found this very helpful. So on Friday, we're going live. We're streaming the first episode for this year for the Get Funded live show. And then what we're going to do in that live show is to respond to questions that some of you have asked in the Q&A. So there was a very interesting question that someone asked last week. It's a startup organization and say, how can I fund my organization sustainably? Awesome question. And so we're going to be taking that in the live show. I shared about 4 to 5 different models that she can look at in order to drive financial sustainability. But I think it will really benefit everyone more if we're able to do that, have that conversation in the live show. And the grant readiness workshop. Hello, Bolale. Okay.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you.
All right. So I think you were with us from the beginning. So do you have any question you'd like to ask? All right. So shoot. Happy New Year to you.
Okay, same to you. Actually, I've been thinking how to monetize some of the things that we do.
That you do. Interesting. How to monetize some of the things you do. And before you came in live, I was already talking about the direction for the Get Funded live show on Friday, and someone had asked that question earlier. I think that was about last week during the Q&A, and she was asking how, to bring in revenue, how to bring in income into the organization. So we'll look at that on Friday. And for some of the activities that you run that should be monetized, like some of your mentorship classes, straight to the point, some of those activities can be monetized, but it depends on who you're targeting part-time. So with the kind of work you do, providing mentorship, confidence building, and character building solutions to children, you know that if you go to rural and vulnerable communities, they will not be able to pay. Even if you say 1,000 naira per child, you will not be able to get any income from that catchment area. But if you take that same program and go to highbrow schools or urban communities where they have issues of maybe child delinquencies, teenage delinquencies. The last time we're on a one-on-one call, I asked you, what problem are you solving? I'm yet to get that answer. I'm still waiting for the answer. What problem are you solving? You went all and all about activities, outcomes. You can't have outcomes without knowing the problem. So what happens is, if you're not able to define the problem and define who has that problem part-time for you to work with, you will not be able to track outcomes. You won't be able to see, amazing stories of impact. That's because there's a misfit somewhere. All right. Yeah. So if you take the program, the way you're doing your activities, and take it to urban communities or communities that have more income than those rural communities and all of that, especially schools. You go to schools where you must have sense or observe that this school, they have a lot of issues with expelling students because of teenage delinquencies and all of that. So you package that program that you're doing, have conversations with them to understand their issues deeper and propose what you do. You will be able to monetize it at that level because they have the financial capacity to pay for it. It is a problem that they are struggling with and they are yet to solve it. So not any high-profile school, but high-profile school that have indicators of problem with children. They have cases of children that have been expelled. They have cases of cultism and all of that, molestation. All of these things are indicators of that delinquencies that your programs are solving. All right, so we'll not be able to go into real details specifically addressing your program in this session, but I'm just giving you those bullets to think through, those lines to think through. So to monetize, you are taking it to high profile communities or families or schools, specifically schools, because that's where these children converge, and you sell to them, and then you're able to monetize. Then another way is when you're doing social media fundraising, you can say that for children to participate in this activity, maybe let's say it's a 3 days boot camp, you can say 5,000 naira per child, and that would be the foundation for your social media fundraising. So you're not just putting account numbers there, send money, but they know exactly what you're supporting. So for every 5,000 naira, you're keeping one child in this boot camp, and then at the end of the boot camp, they'll be able to do this. They will have this awareness. Their self-confidence will increase. They will have these flashcards that help them with affirmations to boost their self-confidence, that will improve their academic performance, and then they will be developed all right. So I know that if I'm giving you 5,000 naira, I know specifically what I am gaining, because I gave her 10K. That means I was able to keep 2 kids in that boot camp, and these 2 children are able to do this now. It makes more sense for me to give you money than to say, we are how we support Celebrate Mickey this planet. What am I supporting? So people think, oh, it's just another NGO that has come online to say, give. But when you are marketing, that's about messaging. That's specifically one of the things that we're doing critically at the grant readiness workshop, the 4 days workshop. Your messaging is very important. Beyond the aesthetics, oh, fine logo, fine graphic, fine t-shirt, all those things are makeup. All those things are pancake. The real meat is the value proposition of the organization. If you have not defined it, the program model, if you've not defined it, all those aesthetics, after a while, it will no longer hold water, because stakeholders cannot really see the value you're bringing to the table. So you reflect and then look at what you're doing carefully again. All right. Okay, so thank you for joining. I'll see you on Friday, because that's when I'll really explore all of the funding sources, funding strategies that we can look at. So the assignment for all of us that came in live and those of us that will be watching the replay is for you to define your program outcome and activities for the year, do your budget, and then decide how much you want. Forget about how much is in your account. It's not important. It is this thing that will put money in your account. So you know the value you're creating this year and the activities you need to do, and then you know the budget, the exact dollar amount that needs to make that happen for the year. $10,000, depending on how large your operations are. $500,000, $1 million, be clear. And then you start identifying stakeholders out there, grant makers, corporate organizations, that this particular outcome is relevant for. If it's not relevant for them, nobody's going to give you any money. Who is this relevant for? If I want to support women in IDPs, would it be relevant for microfinance banks? Can I talk to cooperatives? So these are questions you need to ask in your team to get a clear fundraising strategy for the year. And so the grant readiness workshop is going to hold from January 18th to 21st. It's going to be 4 days. And what is the clear outcome? You have a clear step-by-step process, actionable process to take to ensure your messaging, your proposition in your organization is tightened. You have a clear program structure that is fundable. You are able to put systems in place that makes you eligible for funding, and write grant proposals that get you funded. So by Friday, every time I come on live up until that day, I'm going to share more details of the grant readiness workshop. So tickets is $99, but like you all know me, I always put early bird tickets for those that will be coming in. So for those that are registering between now and the 12th, they get to only pay $49, which is $24,500. The class is $50K, $49,500. Early bird 24,500 for the 4 days grant readiness workshop. So every day I will put in more details of the different topics we're looking at, the tools that we're going to be giving out in the session, the clear outcomes that you should expect when you participate in the grant readiness workshop. So I'll see everybody on Friday. Details, I'm going to leave details in the comment section for those of you who like payment links or you prefer a bank transfer. So all payments will be collected through strategic outcomes consulting, bank details, no more personal payments and all of that. So the organization's bank details is who you should pay. That's the account to pay your registration fees to. So thank you everyone for joining live. If you're watching the replay, you have questions, put the questions there. And the questions that are relevant for the topic in our Get Funded live show will feed into the content for the live show. So on Friday, we're talking about the different streams, models, funding models that you can look at and integrate into your organization to ensure financial sustainability. So thank you, Bolanle, for joining me live. I'll see you on Friday. Have a lovely day, everybody. Bye-bye.